a freaking movie.
Yes, what a freaking movie. So, the Tomorrow War.
Mm-hmm. Was that yesterday? Oh, shoot.
Yeah. I watched it yesterday. You watched it today. So there was a separation. There were 2 points in time.
Oh my gosh, 2 islands in the same river of time.
Oh my gosh.
Like, well, that's certainly a demonstration of the time continuum that I haven't heard before.
That's what a great... It's like they basically try... I don't even know. They never even really tried to explain the paradox. Like,
no.
They kind of mention a couple things. I don't want to get too spoilerly right off the bat. I don't know. Do we? But I feel like I'm going to get spoilerly really quickly. So do you want to try and give like a 3-minute review without spoilers and then just start talking? Because I feel like our previous 2 shows that we've been kind of doing since the reboot, we're more doing like movie discussions. We're not even really doing reviews. But I guess we'll give like a review real quick at the beginning. That's just kind of a general feeling, and then I guess we'll get into the discussion just in case someone actually is watching this for the sake of a review for some reason.
Yes, for some reason. If you are, we're probably not your best source. But we're glad you're here. Yeah, overall, it honestly felt like a very contemporary, like Hollywood-styled movie. I don't know. It felt very Hollywood-esque. It was a good movie. I would give it, as far as Hollywood movies go, I would give it like an 8 out of 10, probably.
Okay.
7.5 out of 10 or something.
7 point, so like a C, I guess.
I feel a B minus or B.
I like the letter grade system now that I mentioned it. I know it's not like it's not the go-to. Also, the thing I've noticed editing these last 2, I say a lot, and I really need to get better at not doing that. So I'm going to be totally super aware of that, I feel like, when we're doing this episode.
Good luck.
Yes, good luck to me. Hopefully I'll get better the longer we do this.
Well, for those of you out there for those of you out there who use Marco Polo or know what that app is, well, it's like you can record a video. It's like recording a voice message to someone and then sending it, but it also includes the video. So I use the Marco Polo app to communicate to family and friends out of state and just at a distance. So, and I say and or I don't know, probably a lot. And my friend and I realized that as we're Marco Poloing each other. And so we both tried really hard not to say and or and it's just impossible. It's just I'm not even trying anymore.
It is just so difficult, unfortunately, but maybe one day we will attain like radio host levels of not saying or like or whatever.
I think Obama would agree with our sentiment.
I would just like to say, now let me be clear. I do not say all that much compared to my fellow Americans. I wonder, like, if anyone... I'm not that good at Obama. No one's going to think we got an actual clip of Obama, so that's good.
Dang it.
I know. I'm going to spoil it right off the bat. I'm okay. I'm decent enough at Obama, but I feel like I'm not as good as I used to be because he's not hasn't been president in a while, so I don't have as much excuse to do it anymore.
Right. Anyways, back to the movie.
Back to the movie after that detour. I said it again. Okay, I'm not gonna make a reference to it again though. Just that's probably way more disruptive if I reference it. But okay, so movie. Chris Pratt. He is a retired veteran, or not retired like in general, but he's retired from being in the military, and he's a school teacher now. He's a science teacher, and a portal opens up, and this is all in the trailer, so I feel like it's not really spoilery, and it is revealed that in the future aliens attack Earth, or at least people think they're aliens, and I mean they are aliens, but I guess there's like slight doubt at one point in the movie where it's like, ooh, what if they're not aliens, maybe? But like that's pretty quickly resolved. So I guess it's a bit of a spoiler, but whatever. Aliens in the future attack Earth. They're gonna kill a lot of people, and they need like reinforcements from the past. This is my first question mark that majorly gets raised. So they're bringing people from the past to fight the war in the future to try and help humanity survive in the future.
They don't have manpower.
Yes, because they don't have enough manpower left to fight the war and win on their own. So they need to recruit people from the past to fight the war in the future. Okay.
And while doing that, they don't tell the modern day citizens, like, they virtually know nothing about the future.
Yes, and that's okay. And I guess maybe we shouldn't. Okay, I'm sorry. Spoilers. We'll get into spoilers now because it's over. Sorry, non-spoilers is over. I give this movie my rating, my initial review. I'll give it a D. I'll give it a D. Like, it sort of passes in some... Like, it passes like a gen ed, I guess, kind of. It doesn't pass like a specific required course, but I guess it's like a passing general. But
I feel like a good standard for a typical action movie that was done really well is like Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat, whatever you want to call it.
And that's another movie that messes with time and has an alien invasion threatening the human race.
It's very similar. That movie was a lot better than this movie.
Yeah, significant.
If
you haven't watched either of them, go watch Edge of Tomorrow instead. That's my review.
Yes. The ending of this movie, of the Tomorrow War, in my opinion, absolutely made it. It was just so
the end is probably the best part. Like, everything.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of Hollywood, I guess, before then, but at least like the end was like a little more enjoyable than.
And before we get into spoilers, I feel like one of the biggest good things about this movie was the pacing actually felt pretty good to me. Everything always feels a little rushed in the beginning, but in my opinion, I feel like the way this movie was paced out, because it was pretty interesting how they did pace it. I felt that they paced it well. I don't know. That's a compliment if we're being critical of the movie before we do spoilers. That's my one affirmation.
And the other thing, my last thing I'll say before we do spoilers, because it's literally the first thing you see in the movie, so it doesn't really give anything away, I feel like, to say this. Like, I love that the beginning of this movie that you could totally parody and have it be like the Megamind. Like, I bet you're probably wondering how I got into this situation. Like, thing. That would totally work, because it's actually almost the same scene. So, but anyway, all right, spoilers. Yeah,
they all die. Oh shoot.
Oh no. Oh well, but kind of, but not really. Okay, spoiler alert.
Oh, you're right. I could say that.
Tomorrow War. Okay, I'm gonna try and talk for a little bit. Okay. It's hard to talk about this movie without. I don't want to like go directly into the major thing that is fundamentally flawed about this movie, because I feel like once I start talking about it, I won't be able to stop talking about it. So maybe I should just try and first talk about the movie like as it presents itself, just kind of accepting how it presents itself, but like critiquing how it chooses to present itself. And then once we've talked about that, then I'll probably spend until PK cuts me off, because I probably won't shut up for a while, and so tell me if I need to shut up, talking about the fundamental premise of the movie and why it's kind of broken and doesn't make the most sense. But so as a movie, accepting it for, I'll give the brief overview here. So in the future, we already talked about it, aliens attack, and people from the future show up in the past. So I think you say 30 years a lot, but technically the movie's like set in 2022 and then 2051. So it's like, I guess, 29 years apart technically, but, you know, effectively 30 years apart. Which is weird that they chose that, because, like, that's an easy script fix. Yeah, I don't know why they did that, but whatever. Maybe they were like, maybe originally the movie was supposed to all be like 2021, because that was when the movie was going to come out. But they're like, we're not quite done with COVID all the way yet. So we need to maybe go another year in the future. Maybe. So then it can just have everything be back to normal and no explanation needs to be given. It's tomorrow's movie as well as tomorrow's war. Instead of like, they could have also just like had it be like an alternate reality where COVID never happened, you know, Like, that could have been fine too, but I don't know. That might be the reason, or maybe there was no reason. I don't know. Whatever, it's fine. Chris Pratt is a high school teacher, or not high school.
Velociraptor trainer.
High school, yeah, velociraptor trainer. He's a high school or middle school teacher. I think high school. I don't know. It's hard to tell the age of the kids, I guess. Like,
I would say it's high school, definitely.
High school, okay, cool. And so he's a high school teacher who's a former, like, U.S. Army dude, and he, served in Iraq, I believe it said, and he has, like, aspirations of being, like, a higher-up researcher that, like, basically never... It's sort of paid off, maybe, kind of, later in the movie, but not really. Because really, he's just kind of stands there in the lab while the other character does all the work. So, like, it's not even really paid off that he wants to be, like, a, more advanced researcher later on, but whatever.
Well, he has to realize what he's been looking for has been before him the whole time.
Okay.
And it's not about his scientific aspirations.
It's about his daughter, I guess, and family.
Mm-hmm. Typical Hollywood movie right there.
Family. Chickpea. Name of his, the nickname for his daughter. Yeah. So, basically, they're having a party at their house. There was actually no reason for it to be a party. That's the other funny thing. There's no reason for any of... Because none of those characters are important.
You're right. That's another typical Hollywood Hallmark movie move.
Yeah,
like it's just like random party.
Yeah, but we don't get introduced to any other characters there. The scene could have just as easily been accomplished with just Chris Pratt, his wife, and his daughter, and it would have been the same scene.
It shows you that they're like a family, like they're friendly, and they're like a normal middle class to do people maybe. Mm-hmm. And it's like, look, they're having a festive party like any normal people would. Like, oh, they're a regular family.
Yeah, and it's it appears to be some sort of like Christmas party / combination. The final match of the World Cup is on. And the fact that it's the final match of the World Cup is fine, because I think I heard... Like,
is that around Christmas time? I don't even know.
I have no idea, because I don't watch soccer. And that's part of the joke is I've heard some people mention... I intentionally avoid watching reviews now until after we've done... our review, but that's something I've heard through the grapevine is people are like, why was Chris Pratt watching soccer? And it's like, well, if it's the final match of the World Cup, I guess it's like a little more plausible. And also, the final match of the World Cup makes sense because it's not like the people from the future are just trying to like make a show for the Americans. They're trying to make a show for the whole world. And the World Cup is
that was a good plan.
The biggest viewed sporting event, I guess. So it makes sense from that perspective.
It does.
But so in the middle of the World Cup, a flashy light show opens up on the field, and soldier-looking people with like full kit and guns and whatever run out onto the field. That's a funny scene because it's like, it basically is like they're not shooting or anything, but it's like they're making quite an entrance. It's just kind of funny. It's like it's just for dramatic effect, I guess, because they know where they're going. Like, clearly, they chose the World Cup.
Yes.
And
so they waltz in full military attire.
Basically like freak everyone out. It's a good thing. Like, I don't know. I feel like the World Cup, no matter where it is, probably has some armed security at it. So they're lucky that like they didn't get into a gun battle in the middle of the World Cup stadium from the security just like, oh my gosh, terrorists have somehow popped into the middle of the stadium. But anyway,
honestly, it looked like a halftime show of that, from the perspective of the audience. Like, it's all this like bright smoke and color that poof, and then all these people come out.
Yeah, like there was enough smoke on the field that maybe you could have been like, well, maybe they somehow snuck on there, like without teleporting. Like,
yes.
So they anyway, all these people jump out, and then this one lady comes out of the portal, and she's somehow already pre-wired into the PA system.
And she gives a very motivational speech.
Yeah.
Why you should join their cause.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Help us. We are from the future.
We are you, I think she says, is how she like begins it. 30 years in the future, and we're fighting a war. our enemy is not human. Like, it's such a weird phrasing of everything. It's like it's like intentional dramatic effect.
Leave the speeches to Steve Rogers, okay? You ain't got his skill.
Yeah. Like, and it is funny too, because like they appear in like a world, like I guess they just want the whole world to see. But like, would it have also worked to have like appeared on the floor of the UN or something?
Yeah.
Like, and then also maybe you could reveal like, because now you're just telling everyone immediately, and you're not giving any chance to soften the blow. Like, you're not consulting with like the world leaders in advance, you know?
Well, that was a point in the movie, is that they didn't, which was a weird point. Like, they want to tell the whole world so that way they can try to cut through as much red tape as possible and not have like national leaders discuss personal interests,
I guess,
involved in the matter. Just cut to the chase.
They do sort of reference that later. I mean, I don't know how.
If the world is really down to 500,000 people in the future, which is what they say, which is like what, I don't know, like
that's
3
such
years.
A hilarious, like
billions
a hilarious
of people are just
number
dead.
Of people are dead. It's so crazy. It's like everybody's effectively dead in this movie.
So in that case, that is pretty dire. So like, sure, just cut to the chase and get people out there. But, yeah.
Yeah, and so
I was kind of laughing right before the portal appears in the World Cup. It's like this one guy gets the ball and he's got a clear shot at the goal and he's running down and like the music stops and everyone in Chris Pratt's home is like watching the TV and everyone stops and also they're watching the screen and there's just like, I don't know, like a decently sized cinematic moment. Maybe it was like 5 seconds, but 5 seconds can be long if there's one thing happening on a screen. And he's just running towards the goal and I was literally like, okay, is an alien about to jump out? The invasion begins here.
This is where it
starts.
Like
it was so obviously like, everyone look at the screen. And then they come through the portal. So I was prepared for anything in that moment. I'm like, I'm just assuming an alien is gonna come out of the ground and eat him before he gets to kick the final goal. But that didn't happen. Wasn't as amusing as I was hoping it would be. But whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine, I guess. Yeah,
there were so many things with this movie that I was like, this is a little weird, this is kind of awkward, this is wrong. This came to a point where I was like, okay, I think I'm analyzing this movie wrong because there's so much wrong with it. I'm like, I think I just need to enjoy this as the blockbuster it is.
Yeah, it's like you could it was like, so I don't know. Yeah, there's so many little bits where it's like, how do they want us to take this movie? There's actually some moments in this movie that make me feel like, was it shopped around as a comedy action movie for a bit? Because that would have worked better, maybe? Like, I don't know. Because like,
of the comic relief guy?
Well, there's comic relief, there's Chris Pratt's character. At the end of the movie... Okay, so at the beginning of the movie, kind of the beginning, is after the future people have revealed themselves, and everyone's really depressed because they think that, like, humanity is doomed in like 30 years, and like Chris Pratt's trying to teach his class of high school students, he's trying to teach them science, and all of his high schoolers are like, we're all gonna die in 30 years, like, why does it matter? And he's got a little speech about like, oh, we need innovators more now than ever. Which is funny because that means before anything's even happened that Chris Pratt believes, you would assume, unless he's just lying to them to like make them feel better, that he thinks that obviously like the future can be changed from the past, right? Unless he's just lying to them to make them feel better about themselves. Like, anyway, we'll get that aside. But one of his students, he's like, all right, who wants to talk? Because they're not following his lesson, and he's like, who wants to talk, what do you guys want to talk about? And like Martin or Marvin or whatever the one kid's name was raises a hand and he's like, does anyone else besides him want to talk about something? Because he's just going to talk about volcanoes. And then like at the end of the movie, they need a volcano expert and they go back to Chris Pratt's classroom and they get this high school kid to like explain to them this thing about volcanoes that they can use.
I was waiting for as soon as he was like as soon as they were like, those kids all about volcanoes is all he ever wants to talk about. I'm like, this is totally coming back later in the movie. I mean, I don't know. That's such a classic like Hollywood movie like move.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
it just doesn't fit. There's multiple
obviously
incongruent
not.
moments where it's like, okay, this parts of the movie wants to be like dark and depressing because it's like, yeah, everyone's gonna die, like literally everyone's gonna die, in the human race is going to be extinct, and like people get graphically killed and stuff like that. And then you have other moments where it's like, oh haha, we talked to Chris Pratt's high school students and we used the information we got to figure out something about the plot that we can then go to do the thing. And also, like, we have funny, I can't remember the actor's name, but we have, like, a dude who's kind of funny, but sometimes he's, like, PTSD'd. Like, it's kind of funny because we see him come back and he's, like, all whacked out, but then they're, like, in the lab with him, and he's like, I'm back to being, like, funny man. Like, oh my gosh. There was a lot of incongruencies. But yeah, so Chris Pratt gets drafted. So first they say, okay, that they send half the world's military, like all the militaries of the world, they send half of them back.
That's a lot of troops.
Because they say that's millions of soldiers. And also you would assume they send like more equipment than just like what they can take. Like it seems like it's a decent size portal. Like I assume there's ways to send more equipment than just what you have on your person through it. I don't know. They send all these troops through the portal. That conflicts
with their method that they explain elsewhere, where they only send people who are recently going to die.
Well, they do say that only 50% of the world's military is jump compatible, which is still a huge percentage. Like really, 50% of them are going to die within the next 30 years. 50% of the world. I understand that they're soldiers, but it's not like is there supposed to be like a world war, like between now and then? Like 50% of them, 50% of these people that are overwhelmingly between the ages of like 18 and 25 are gonna die in 30 years time. Like seriously, like is that what you're actually telling me? So anyway, they say they send like half the world's military back, and then they're like virtually massacred in like a week. Like, millions of troops. Like, so then, after that, though, then we're expected to believe that happened, but rather than think, okay, well, clearly we need a different approach to this, then the approach is, well, let's start drafting civilians to go fight this war instead. And that'll work. After you've just lost millions of trained, equipped, disciplined, regimented, understand tactics and military procedure and how to fight wars. Like, after you've just lost literally like half of the world's military doing this thing, now you think, oh yeah, well, probably like, let's just grab like civilians. And we're only going to give them like a week of incredibly unsophisticated basic training. And during this training, we're not even going to tell them what the aliens look like or like how the most effective way to fight them is. Therefore, by definition.
Until like 12 hours before they're deployed. By the way, the only vulnerable part of these aliens is like their throat and their bellies.
Apparently.
And that's the training.
Yeah, that's basically the training. And like, but they don't even show them the pictures of them or anything. Yeah. And it's like, so then the first time that all these civilians get to see these horrifying monster aliens is also when they're expected to actually fight them for the first time. So you're now taking a risk that all these people are just going to be like terrified to the point where they're just going to like, not be able to handle themselves and, just going to like crap their pants and like run away. Like,
which is funny because they were concerned that if they showed them pictures beforehand that they wouldn't go. But at the same time,
but they're all being forced to go.
There's a psychological factor where like, do you get the shock before or right in the? Would you rather be in the shock before or right in the heat of the moment when you're trying to actually shoot at these aliens?
Yeah, and I feel like it would be much better to prepare yourself in advance.
That was a horrifying intro to those aliens when the first time you see it.
No, they are terrifying.
That was ugly.
They are not, like, they're...
Do not show this movie to your kids if they're younger than, I don't know, if they're 13 or younger, because that's easily stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, there's some scary aliens. What's funny is they're not super effective. Like, it's actually very difficult for me to believe that these aliens were able to wipe out so much of the world's population in just 3 years. Yeah. Like, we see they're very effective in, like, close combat, but the problem is like, again, and we'll touch on this a little bit, but, like, this war in the future is just being run by the most incompetent people, I guess, is the only explanation. I guess Chris Pratt's daughter is actually just an idiot. I don't know. Because it's revealed that Chris Pratt's daughter, that we see as, like, an 8 or 9 year old, she's like Colonel, whatever their name is, in the future, and she's, like, you know, pretty high up, obviously, as a colonel, especially since
maybe she wasn't high up. Yeah, she wasn't high up before, but only when
she's
everyone started to die.
She's just promoted out of necessity. Like, well, there's only like 500,000 people left, so, like, you know, second lieutenant, what's her name? I guess you're colonel now. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But these aliens, first, they don't have any long-ranged weapons. They have no heavy weapons. They don't have, like, an ability to burrow. Like, they make burrows in the ground, but they're not, like, burrowing like Edge of Tomorrow aliens do.
Yeah. They
don't have the same, like, heavy weapons that Edge of Tomorrow aliens do. I feel like we're going to maybe compare this to Edge of Tomorrow a few times. Sorry.
Yeah.
But, like, the Edge of Tomorrow aliens, we see them, like, shooting anti-aircraft. We see them firing, like, basically artillery. We see all sorts of, like, these energy and ranged weapons, even though a lot of their combat is, like, melee, close range craziness. Yeah. Like, we see that they have more sophisticated stuff or, like, more capable weapons. These guys do not appear to have any of that because...
they're just animals.
Yeah, there's also, like, a scene where they're flying in a helicopter over, like, a flock of them or whatever you want to call them, a pack of them that are, like, running across the beach, and they don't care, clearly. Because I guess they probably just know that they can't do anything about the helicopter. It's, like, 500 feet above them. Like, it's just out of their capability. And it's like, okay, so you're telling me that the world's military in 2048, which is presumably even more mechanized and air power equipped than our current one is, like, somehow that military wasn't able to leverage the fact that they're fighting a force that has no heavy weapons or air superiority capability or anything like that. They weren't able to leverage that to contain them. Also, like, nuclear weapons is pretty much never discussed in any of these types of movies, where it's like, look, if a huge portion of the world's getting overrun, at a certain point someone's going to make that call and just be like, hey, we might be screwed anyway. There's going to be some ecological fallout from doing this, but, like, maybe it's just time to, like, okay, you know, we're going to just have to figure out how to deal with the aftermath of detonating 500 nuclear warheads, like, but at least we can figure out how to do that, as opposed to, you know, these things that appear to be unstoppable for whatever reason. But, like, oh my gosh, it's just so... literally, the best defensive position against these things, you set up in a desert or in the Great Plains region. That's where you set up, okay? Because they can't fly and they can't burrow underground, like, over vast distances rapidly, okay? So you set up in the Great Plains region, like, lots of wide open terrain, lots of great...
Kansas.
Yeah, like, places where it's really flat and, like, open.
The Great Steppe in Russia.
Yeah, Russia, the place where they came from, apparently.
Yes.
Great example.
Yes.
Like, you set up in those places. Also, if they went south, you got the Gobi Desert. So, like, there's a lot of great places that you could set up your defenses. And that's where you just sit. You just sit with your armored vehicles and your artillery and your air support. And when these things, whose only tactic for attacking is to come in mass, you just slaughter them, because there's nothing they can do. There's nothing that they can do. They have no capability to deal with any aircraft. I'm sorry, I'm talking about this so crazy. My wife is like looking at me from, like, a little bit away, like, what are you getting so worked up about?
Don't take this personally, Paul. These aliens aren't real.
It's not real.
This didn't actually happen.
It's just a movie. It's okay. It'll be okay.
Well, their hides apparently are pretty tough to like regular machine gun fire, but not to like artillery.
But we see later in the
bombing.
movie, that they're actually use these bombers at one point to like kill a bunch of them. So clearly, like that would have worked. Also, the bombers they use are F-22s, which is like the worst plane in this situation. But whatever, that's fine.
I guess they still have F-22s in 2051.
Well, I mean, it makes sense that they would still have them in service. It's just funny, though, because let's say you really were that desperate. Like, and again, these are creatures that do not have any, like, air superiority capability. We see them have, like, some squirrel suit capability where they can do, like, a flying squirrel thing, but they can't actually fly. They can just kind of glide.
Apparently they can swim very
they can swim very far, very fast, apparently, and not get tired. But
their bodies did not look like they were very.
They should not be good
for
swimmers.
Swimming at all. They should not be good swimmers at all.
But they are for the sake of the movie.
What if just en masse they were just drowning and just walking on top of the dead bodies on top of them?
10% of them that actually make it to the naval facility that's out there. Maybe that's what happened.
That was a good idea, that naval facility.
That was a decent idea, but also like the amount of resources that must have gone into building that gigantic floating wall when they could have just done like what I was saying, where they could have just set up like a bunch of artillery and stuff in a big open area of the world and probably just held out for like a tremendous amount of time. Yeah. But okay, anyway, like whatever, cool naval base, I guess. But also the way they defend the naval base is actually really stupid because all their defenses are on the inside. So again, you can't take advantage of your ranged weapons until the enemy is really like over the wall already. Like there's a minefield apparently on the outside, but it doesn't seem like it's particularly effective. And then like you have all these like destroyers on the inside of the giant seawall. So they can't actually use their, like, guns and stuff until they get, like, over the wall, as opposed to being able to shoot at them from a long distance for a long time before they actually got there. So that's cool. But, yeah, so they... Oh my... Where even are we? Where even are we?
I think we're just tearing this movie to shreds like those aliens tore through some human bodies.
I guess I don't know. Is there anything specifically we want to talk about? Because there's so many things. Oh, the F-22 bomber scene. Okay, so that's where they first get deployed into the future. So Chris Pratt gets deployed in the future. There's also Chris Pratt. Like 90% of the people he deploys with get killed immediately because they mess up. And instead of deploying them like 5 feet above the ground, because apparently they have to deploy you a little bit above the ground for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe so that way you don't like phase into the ground or something. Like instead of deploying them 5 feet above the ground, somehow there's like a problem with like their coordinates, which is the other funny thing. They can apparently with their technology teleport you back in time and forward in time to any location on Earth, apparently, as long as it's at those specific points in time.
Right.
So that's how the time travel in this movie works. And so they drop them and like 90% of them die because they like basically fall off the side of a giant building, which is super cool, very good. But Chris Pratt survives along with like a few other people, and then they get in contact with future Chris Pratt's daughter, although Chris Pratt doesn't know it's his daughter yet at this point, and she's like, hey, I need you to retrieve a sample from this lab. Also, we find out that basically this is like the most important thing for winning the whole war. And Colonel What's-Her-Face knows that it is, but somehow she doesn't have the authority to delay the bombers like enough to give them time to leave or retask them and be like, okay, instead of just carpet bombing the whole city, instead you're going to like give close air support to these guys to help them escape. Like that could have been smart. Oh, but they don't do that.
There were a few moments in this movie where it's like, hey, the best, most efficient thing to do and the smartest thing to do would be to let other people with more authority know what's going on and get the permission from them, and then they're like, no, we have to take it in our own hands.
And then what's funny is, okay, so they're making their way out of. They get the stuff from the lab. They have some gun battles with the aliens, and they are like trying to get out of the city because the F-22s are coming to bomb the whole thing. And there's like a line where she's just like, just make sure to stay away from any red smoke. And this is part of where it's like, was this supposed to be funny? Because like as she's saying that, they're like walking through like a red smoke flare. But okay,
Yeah.
Who put the red smoke all over the city? And why do you need the red smoke? So in real life, sometimes the military will use different color smoke to like mark locations for like an airstrike or whatever. But it's because like, hey, I want you to blow up that specific building or whatever, and I'm going to shoot this smoke grenade over there and see the purple smoke and then just shoot that or whatever. Or I'm going to mark my own location with green smoke. Whatever you do, don't shoot the green smoke. But, like, it requires that someone was there to, like, you know, set off all the smoke bombs. And I don't know who could have been there to put all those there, because it wasn't Chris Pratt's unit, and everyone else is apparently dead.
I think the aliens have people on the inside working against the aliens.
That's probably what was happening, yeah. Also, it's a carpet bombing mission. They specifically say they're just going to blow away the whole city with 5 F-22 Raptors that definitely don't have enough payload to do that unless they're carrying
that
nukes.
take their time. Yeah.
So, like, why do you need to mark anything with smoke? The target is the city. They're just going to shoot everything.
It's like saying we have to cover this entire like piece of paper with like I don't know, lead or graphite, whatever. Like, okay, and you get like this tiny little like number 2 pencil out and you start like scribbling on it. Like you could just like, I don't know, paint it black.
Yeah, exactly.
like instead they're going to send these F-22 Raptors to like take out individual streets first,
I guess,
and marking it. This movie seems like it was heavily inspired from like games like Fortnite. Just the fact that they were falling down into their city.
They fall. They paradrop into the battlefield, and then they have to like. At least they don't have to loot. At least they're not like, okay, like we don't have enough guns to give you, so you have to just find stuff in the future. They're just like playing Fortnite in IRL.
Fortnite the movie.
Future. Yeah.
Wow.
That would have been hilarious.
And then like the smoke and like someone's called an airstrike here, you know, get out of the way. But they kind of needed that airstrike because
it did eventually work in their favor. Yeah, it kills all the aliens chasing them, and then they get extracted, I guess. They pass a destroyed aircraft carrier at one point that's like half underwater, and the planes that are on it like wrecked there. Also, how did the aliens sink the aircraft carrier? Wouldn't they have just killed everyone on it and then left it drifting? But it's quite clearly like kind of blown up. So
I think they get so fat from gorging themselves on humans that they just weigh so much and the ships just crack in half.
Sure, that's probably it. So the aircraft carrier is like half underwater, and we see all of these planes on the aircraft carrier that are like also partially destroyed, and they all appear to be F-14s, which were retired from service in 2008. So I don't really know why they're back in 2048, like 40 years later. That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I guess they decided to start producing those again, which is cool. I mean, it's a cool airplane, but just seems a little weird.
Maybe all the other planes were destroyed by the non-flying aliens.
So they had to like, by the non-flying aliens. So they had to like go to like the scrap yard in the Arizona desert, and they like dust off the F-14s that are just rotting away there. And they're like, maybe these will work. Like, sir, we also have, like, F-18s here that are newer, but we've also been retiring some of those already. He's like, no, the F-14, have you seen Top Gun? Top Gun's pretty tight. We gotta be like Top Gun. That's the secret to beating the aliens, is to be more like Top Gun. Tom Cruise, if Tom Cruise were in this movie, be taken care of, like, before it even started. But...
oh, my word. Yes, right. Because what you really need to fight those aliens is... Tom Cruise's swift fighter jet moves that he can pull in the sky, because he got to get those bogeys off his tail.
Yeah, he could fly upside down over the non-flying aliens and flip them the bird.
Hey, if velociraptors could open doors, then I'm sure these aliens could figure out how to fly.
What if the aliens figured out how to fly the jets, and so that's why so actually the aircraft carrier is destroyed because the aliens took it over, and the humans blew it up to prevent them from using it against them. Maybe that's the real explanation.
Oh my word. You just see Chris Pratt like, what, are these like aliens gonna like learn how to fly the planes. Like looks out the window and there's like an alien in a cockpit like waving at him. Oh shoot.
It's like
it's significant to note
she's learning.
She's learning. What are they gonna start opening doors or something? Flies in a plane. It's significant to note, I think, that the noise that the first noises you hear of the aliens when they're first waltzing around the city to try to get when they were first deployed in Miami Beach. Also, huge plus to the movie, they chose not to center it in New York
or LA
or Chicago or LA.
Yeah, we go to a city that we don't always see. It's kind of nice, I guess.
It's probably
still America.
It's probably filmed
still
in LA.
America.
Yeah, still America, of course. But the noises when you of the aliens when you first hear them are indeed the velociraptor noises that they used for the Jurassic World movie.
That's
eventually
so
the sounds. I know the main sound of the aliens is not. It's an original sound, but like when they're just like waltzing, when they're trying to sneak around the city, and you kind of hear aliens in the background doing all sorts of alien things. It's totally the velociraptor, like not the Jurassic Park velociraptor. That's a different sound, but the Jurassic World velociraptors. Mm-hmm. Different species, different sound, obviously.
Okay. Yes.
Different genetically bred velociraptors here.
Maybe these are actually descendants of velociraptors that were taken from Earth, genetically modified in space by the other aliens. That I guess there are other aliens in this movie. For 10 seconds, we see some dead ones. Spoiler. And maybe they took velociraptors, modified them to do this.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it,
brought them back.
Yeah, they should have just combated the aliens with velociraptors. They should have gone back in time, captured velociraptors.
Or they should have made this the crossover from the Jurassic World universe, where because they're talking about militarizing dinosaurs, and they have to militarize the dinosaurs to fight the aliens.
The Tomorrow War multiverse. That's the sequel.
The Jurassic Tomorrow War World.
The Jurassic Tomorrow War World. The War Tomorrow World Jurassic Park Tomorrow.
The Jurassic Tomorrow World War. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
So then they go on a mission. Chris Pratt goes on a mission with his daughter to.
So yeah, he meets his daughter, who is a colonel, and she's in charge of stuff, and she's very important. And it's kind of this cool moment when he realizes it. And apparently, it's not just that it's cool to see your daughter again, but there's also, of course, considering it's a typical Hollywood movie, there's relationship drama between the two. There's personal drama between the two. Yeah, and it seemed that. In the beginning of the movie, Chris Pratt and his family, they seem like a very solid family. The kind of character Chris Pratt is. What's his name in the movie? David Forrester?
Maybe it's
Forrester?
Dave or Dan or David. Yeah, I have no idea.
We'll call him Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt.
He seems like a pretty solid guy, and then we learned from his future daughter that, like, obviously the way she looks at him, there's something different. There's something off. Of course, she's probably seen billions of people die and thinks that humanity is going to die. And she's probably seen her father die at this point. So, of course, she's probably going to be this, like, kind of a bit shaken of an individual. But there's obviously something else wrong. And apparently, Chris Pratt finds out that, she's like, I can't tell you. And then 2 scenes later, she tells him. She's an emotionally... they
have, like, a moment where they're vulnerable...
Yeah, but like, she was a daddy's boy, and apparently in the future, Chris Pratt leaves his family, and becoming like Chris Pratt becomes like his own dad, because he's also a character that you see.
Yes.
What's the actor's name that plays his dad?
I don't remember.
What's his name? Oh shoot, the guy who plays in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man series, the newspaper boss guy. This is embarrassing. That guy, State Farm.
I need pictures of Spider-Man. But
anyways, so
I need you to go to the future and get pictures of Spider-Man.
Yes.
Before they even happen.
So anyways, Chris doesn't want to be like his dad, because his dad left them.
He got PTSD after Vietnam.
He got PTSD after Vietnam.
And then he left their family because he didn't know how to deal with it. And apparently it's basically like, Chris Pratt, you're going to do the same thing. You get PTSD from this, and then you leave your family too.
Well, that's the thing, is that he didn't even have PTSD, but it was apparently he wanted to pursue his science career so bad that he couldn't be satisfied with his own family.
Okay, I thought it was just because like he got freaked out so much from the like fighting. Because the other thing that's weird about the like sort of paradoxical about
we don't know
is that like she's like, you came back. I thought she was like, you came back and then like you ended up like leaving us or whatever. And it's like, so it's like this whole thing is so weird of like, wait, how does the timeline get affected by like people knowing things? Like, it's so like, and like, would it have, yeah, it's just, the way time works in this movie is really weird.
Yeah,
like
it
more
appears
than a
to
lot
be
of time travel movies, I would say, like more so than most.
It's not consistent with itself. It seems to be that they're going along with the line of if you do something in your timeline, it affects the reality of the past, but not your future. Kind of like in Marvel.
But then it does.
But then it does.
So,
like,
and also
Chris
Pratt and his wife are the first people smart enough to think of this idea, which is mind-boggling.
Yes. I mean, at the rate at which they were like, the future people appeared in the past, like, we need your help, please come here quick. I'm like, oh, okay. So maybe there wasn't a lot of thinking getting involved, but it's really hard to believe. Anyways, so
it's like, and the idea of sending your troops to the future to fight the war then, knowing that some of them could die, and a lot of them obviously do die, and then thinking like, hey, you know what might have been a better idea? What if we now know that the aliens are going to attack, so we won't be caught off guard, so let's just prepare by 2048, like, the biggest military mobilization in the history of humankind, and just kill them all as soon as they show up. What if we just did that instead? But apparently no one's really thought that through very well.
It will somehow not, they understand if they act in their timeline. It's funny because in the beginning of the movie, you assume that if you do something in the original timeline, it will affect the future. But then by the end of the movie,
then you're still shooting yourself in the foot, because now all the people from our Earth, like we'll say it's two separate timelines. Now all the people from our Earth are going to their Earth to help. But let's say that we win, and let's say somehow that works, and they do actually win in the future, theoretically, for the sake of argument. Well, now the white spikes will presumably still attack in our timeline as well, 30 years in the future. And now, like, our timeline is even weaker because we sent so many of our troops and, like, people to die in their timeline.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's weird.
It's so... Yeah. It's so...
But anyways, so we were saying, though, the father-daughter... They have, so it's kind of cool because it's a father-daughter relationship is the main dynamic of the movie, which you don't see a lot these days. So that was kind of cool to see. It's not like a romantic couple or I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't a dumb like a cross-time romance. That would have been dumb.
Even a father-son, which is a bit more common, but it was like a father-daughter, and that was cool to see. And she was a daddy's kid, so daddy's girl, whatever. So she really looked up to her dad and was broken that her dad like left her. Mm-hmm. So then seeing him again was weird, but the point when she's seeing him in the future, our Chris Pratt, so to speak, it's before he like changed whatever. Cause really, what I assumed from the movie was that he was so consumed with his idea of wanting to be something great scientifically, do something great with his life, with his career, that he couldn't see, the value of his family. That's the reason why I got he left, which is still, I guess it's not surprising from a human perspective that something like that would happen if he's so set on a reality that he can't have. But at the same time, it's like, wow, they look like a pretty solid family. I don't know if that would happen. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so she has conflicting feelings working for him, but then because she still loves him, she eventually opens up I mean, who else are you going to open up to? There's 500,000 people left in the whole world. So she opens up to him and explaining him these things, and he tries his best to be his help to her. And so basically after that opening, it's not really opening scene. After that first combat scene in the city, when they have to get these, we haven't even explained what they're trying to get in Miami Beach. They were these vials that have this
toxic weapon with them.
Their toxic weapon that they're going to try to use to kill all the aliens, which I presume that's what they've been trying to do this whole time, because that seems pretty efficient.
Hey, you know what they could have done to have more time to research the neuroweapon? They could have sent it to the
gone
past.
back in time. Yes, that's what I thought of. They literally could have taken their. They could have taken their samples and put it in the past and worked on it and mass produced it there and then sent it to the future. But it looks like they didn't have the whole get troops from the past thing until right up till the last moments, right? Yeah. Because it says like their time machine was like a very
rough. It's been going on for like about a year, I think, is what it kind of says. They say like 11 months maybe or something.
Still,
like
that should be a lot of time to like, if we can get this COVID vaccine down in modern times, and just like, how long did it take? A few months? I don't know. Like, you think that if the whole world was like, okay, if COVID was
priority
bad, imagine this whole alien invasion.
Let's all make this thing. And then what's funny is they say like, well, we can't. It doesn't work yet because most of the aliens are males, but a few of them are females, and they're the ones that reproduce. So like, we have to figure out one that kills the females. I'm like, hey, geniuses, it seems like if you could kill all the males, that would probably still be like really useful, and then you could probably kill the females real quick before they could like reproduce enough to have like a significant force again. But it's
like there are a lot more males.
It's really important that they like develop the bioweapon to like kill the females too, even though it looks like it's a ratio of 1 to 10,000 or whatever, like, or more. We don't even know.
That's a good point, because if you killed all the males, well, let's be honest, all the female aliens would be screwed.
I guess that, or not be screwed. Either way, you don't get that much more additional aliens in theory. So,
like, all the females just look at each other like, well, this is awkward.
I guess we hadn't considered this idea.
Yes.
But anyway, so they go and they have to capture a female alien to have a live female specimen to like,
which was
test
weird
on.
Because they could have just gotten any biological sample.
It also seems like, they could have just shot her and then taken her blood sample or something, and then,
or just like take a slice of, like if they get in that close combat with them, just like get some.
But
like,
we have this,
from her.
but instead we have this overly like silly scene where they're trying to like capture her, and like it also feels like something out of Jurassic Park where they're all like trying to wrestle this thing with like ropes and harpoon gun things and whatever. And then also everyone keeps yelling at Chris Pratt to stay in the helicopter, and then even at the end of the scene where he finally is like, I gotta do something, and he jumps out of the helicopter and he does the thing to help them actually get the alien, and at the end his daughter is like mad at him because she's like, you put yourself in unnecessary risk, and like I need you to do something for me still. And like, hey, genius, you put Chris Pratt in unnecessary risk when you brought him with you on this mission on the helicopter instead of just leaving him back at the base. Like, that's how you would have actually avoided putting Chris Pratt in unnecessary risk.
Maybe she brought him because she was like, she had that emotional tie, like, he's my dad and I got to be around him. I don't know.
Maybe. Sure.
But anyways, so they get the vial and they get back to their sea base, which is actually a pretty smart move. Except
they've got like a cool base built on like a bunch of old oil rigs or something.
Yeah.
And there's also this gigantic seawall around it somehow.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, what you were saying, Paul, if they could have done that infinitely cheaper and easier by doing it in the plains of Kansas or something. But whatever.
And then you could grow corn or something. In
exactly.
Your base too. Yeah. I guess they could fish in the sea base. We see like a fishing boat, so they're. I guess they sort of like have something in there to like at least tip the hat to like, they're getting food. They get some salmon or something.
I wonder how the aliens taste.
Yeah, maybe they can eat the aliens. The aliens eat the people, so it's only fair.
It's a circle of life.
Yeah.
Anyways, so they get back, and it's kind of funny because they have a very typical like science. Like, now they do science.
Yes, and now for some science.
And there's like a DNA strand that like goes across the screen, and there's like numbers flying across.
We're
there's music
testing
playing.
tens of thousands of permutations overnight. Like
Yes, overnight. They did it in like one night, one day.
Yeah,
and
literally, like it all came down to this. Now that we have the female, it's only going to take us like 12 hours to figure out how to like change the bioweapon to affect them, and yeah. It's
really weird.
And
like okay, this is the most important thing of all humanity. Okay, we're gonna have one chick be working on it by herself
with her dad from the past.
And
he doesn't really do anything. He just kind of stands there for most of it.
And the lab is right next to the chained freaking dinosaur.
Yes. And also we never considered that maybe these things that we established earlier as having like super sensitive sense of smell and everything else, that maybe this thing would like because they say like, oh, she smells awful, and it's like, yeah, she's secreting something. It's like, oh, hey, I wonder what that could be. Maybe it's like some sort of pheromone that's gonna attract everyone. Because their sea base, I think they have like a location card pop up, and I think it's I can't remember what they use as the reference, but it's like 30 miles, east of whatever. And I'm like, hey, you could put it like further in the water, too. Because then maybe the pheromones wouldn't float 30 miles. You could maybe believe that, okay, yeah, Super Sense could maybe hone in on that relatively quickly. I don't know.
Spidey senses.
But, like, what if we just put it, like, in the middle of the ocean? Because they're oil rigs and they can do that. Like, maybe it would be more secure?
Yeah.
I don't know. But
it's
whatever.
kind of funny, like, that science moment where they need to get like a toxin that says 100% on the computer.
The computer needs to say 100%,
and they know
and they can only get it to keep saying like 52, 68.
And so basically, it's a scene of like, but they started doing the process. And then they couldn't. But then they did.
Yeah, there's no aha moment. There's nothing special. Nope. It's just like we tried it for the 10,000th time, the same thing, but it worked. And the computer said 100%. And then she grabbed the vial and she was like, "Dad, you need to get this back." And also, they don't send Chris Pratt back immediately. Which is what they should have... No, because they jumped them into the future prematurely, remember?
He had to wait until his timer was up. No, but he was transported back to the past because his timer was up. That's why he was like...
Yes.
He had a few seconds left in his watch.
They were able... Because in the movie, they send them ahead of schedule. They send them back to the future... They send them forward... Not Back to the Future. Also, watch that movie instead of this one because that one's also better.
That's the sequel to this movie should be.
Yeah, maybe it should be Back to the Future. Yeah. Anyway, so this movie, they send Chris Pratt and his gang to the future ahead of schedule because the science lab is under attack in Miami, and so they send them to the future ahead of schedule from when they were originally supposed to jump. So clearly, it's like they're able to do that, but
it's still a certain amount of hours that started early,
and then he has to be there for a week for some reason. There's no way for even Colonel Colonel Chris Pratt's daughter lady, to send him back early. There's no way to do that, even though that's like literally apparently her entire plan. We find out is for him to take this vial back in time, mass produce it, and then when the aliens first show up or whatever, he can kill them all with the bioweapon before it gets out of hand. That's apparently her master plan.
So and then they get the vial, they get the enzyme, whatever that works, 100%. It's 100% potent. It's gonna actually kill the females.
Yes.
And then I don't know. The female like wakes up and they realize that No, then they realize all the males have been swimming.
They've been swimming across the ocean 30 miles.
Yeah.
To...
It really had a zombie apocalypse feel, like World War Z.
Yeah.
They're just climbing
There's just
over the wall
an
en masse.
overwhelming number, and they're just climbing over walls and like jumping onto low-flying helicopters and swarms.
Basically, they remind me a lot of like Thanos' minions that we see in Infinity War. This idea of this kind of really quick, disgusting, ugly, vicious-looking creature with sharp teeth that just runs super quick and looks disgusting and can just be like, they don't even have any armor on. They're just mass-produced things that can just destroy really quick.
Yes.
Those are the aliens. And so, anyways, I guess they can swim, sure. And so they get there.
Sure.
Because
why not? Sure.
And then why not? And then the Queen has a personal vendetta against the Chris Pratt's daughter.
Yeah, it's like the Queen knows that
she's in charge. It's a girl thing. It's a cat fight, honestly.
It's a cat fight.
Some between females, they just know they're out to get each other. And so, anyways, and then there's this kind of intense scene where they're trying to get from the lab on the oil rig to the helicopter pad, and all these, and then as the walls are being overrun with
the aliens start swarming over the oil rig. And let's see if my video actually works now. It's okay. If it doesn't, we'll just insert it later manually. But here's my practical demonstration. So in the movie, okay, they are using like M4 type rifles that have some sci-fi nonsense stuck on them. They're actually real accessories. They're just stupid, in my opinion, most of them. Or they're not really meant to be used for that particular situation. But anyway, they've got these M4 rifles. They've got ACOG type sights on them. So it's like a magnified optic. And then they also have a offset red dot mount. And the point of having that set up on your gun is that you have your magnified optic that is your primary optic, because in real life, most gunfights in a military context happen relatively decent ranges away from you. Think War on Terror, think all that stuff. Unless you're like a special ops dude, like breaching a building, most gunfights are going to happen probably like a couple hundred yards or so. Or so I've been told. So you have your primary magnified optic, and then you have an offset optic, and that's like, well, what if you get into a situation where you're fighting someone within like 50 yards-ish, or inside a building where you're within 10 yards maybe, then you can just flip to the side and have your red dot, and you have a much wider field of view, and so it's meant for like CQB situations. Now, the oil rig is being overrun, and Chris Pratt and his daughter are using these M4s, and for some reason they're like going around and clearing rooms, and they're clearly holding the rifle as if they're looking through their big optic on top. They're not canting them at a 45-degree angle to use that offset red dot sight. So like it's just like, it's a weird, and again, so this is super nitpicky compared to everything else in the movie, but it's just an example of like, why did you not get that detail? Like, why was there an armorer? Why did the armorer for this movie, like, he's dead. Yeah, he's dead.
For the movie.
For the movie, yeah, for the movie. Maybe he's also dead. Maybe that explains it. He just made all the guns and then he died. But why did the armorer for this movie, like, he got them all set up, like, he set up all the guns to have these offset, like, red dots, but then they never actually show them use it at any point. It's like, we put all the cool stuff on the gun, but then we never bother to actually use any of it, so why was it there? I guess just to make it look cool, but, like,
yeah,
you're not going to use it, so why bother with it? It's like, it's just a pointless accessory that you never use, even in the situation where it would be most useful for them to use it. There's actually another moment like that later on in the movie, back in our time, where Chris Pratt has a like AR-15/M4 style rifle, and he's got a like PEC-15 looking device on it, which is basically like a laser sight device that is meant to be used with night vision goggles. That's basically why that thing exists. And Chris Pratt, notably lacking night vision goggles for the whole movie. So, in that particular scene, if he had night vision goggles, is where he would have used them, because it was pretty dark. So, like, why does Chris Pratt have a PEC 15 IR laser sighting device, but doesn't have a corresponding set of night vision? That's kind of weird that he would bother with that, but whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. And leading up to that moment, so then basically, Chris Pratt's future daughter, grown-up daughter, gets stabbed by an alien dart.
Yes.
Which maybe is the white spikes that the aliens. So the aliens are called white spikes.
Yes.
Right.
They are called.
And I'm not sure. And they're definitely white.
They're
so
definitely
they got that part
white.
of it down.
So
the spikes could refer to their
privileged.
darts. Oh my gosh.
And I guess the spikes are their darts that they shoot. They can shoot darts, but they can only shoot them maybe a couple 100 feet at most.
And they have like a gun sound when they shoot too, apparently.
It's very cool.
So very cool, very deadly. And so she gets hit by one. So they're trying to get to the helicopter pad, and Chris Pratt's like, "I'm coming back for you." And then she's like, "Oh, okay, that'd be nice." And then she gets like shot, and she's like badly injured, and the oil rig's on fire, and everyone's dying. This is like the last hope of humanity. Like the last humans, presumably are like right here, and on the oil rig, and they're all being overrun and dying. And he's sitting there with his daughter who's dying, and then of course the queen finds them, the queen alien. She's not even the queen; she's just a female, just a female alien that the one they were operating on that all the males came to the rescue for. And then something close combat happens, and then the little walkway they're on just falling down, and then Chris Pratt's holding on to his daughter with one hand as she's falling down. She's like hanging off of the railing, and the alien is underneath the railing, barely holding on to another loose railing. So it's like Chris Pratt, then his daughter, and the alien, and he's holding on to like all of them, or at least his daughter. And he's like, I can't let you go. And she's like, you have to go back to the past and fix this, and like, I love you, whatever. And then she lets go. And Chris Pratt actually lets go too, and like you have this super dramatic picture. It was kind of cool, but it was almost like it was kind of too much.
It just kind of felt like the director was like,
water.
Wouldn't it be cool if like all the aliens were like rising up in slow motion to like Chris Pratt's daughter as she falls through the air? Maybe I might in the video of this. On YouTube, I might take a screenshot of the movie from that scene and put it up.
It might not let you take a screenshot.
I could probably get I think I can figure it out. I think I can do it.
Okay.
If I remember to edit it in, it'll be the real question.
All right,
but
there we go. But yeah, so she's falling. So you have Chris Pratt, and like the sun is setting, and it's like shining right behind her as she's falling, and Chris Pratt's right above her, and the mother alien, whatever, is falling down underneath her, and it doesn't even look like water anymore because it's all just so thoroughly aliens building up to reach.
Yeah, and they're like
this
they're
red
building
lighting
up. Yeah,
super saturated.
It's like World War Z,
filter.
where they're all like building up to go attack the helicopter. There's like forming a mountain.
Yeah, and that happens, and then Chris Pratt's future timer watch thing gets it's the end. Like it's down to the last second. He gets sent back to the past. And presumably his daughter gets torn to shreds as she is eaten alive by 10 billion aliens.
Yes.
So the good news is that it was probably a quick death because
we would hope.
Being torn apart by several thousand aliens at once would probably be a very quick.
Probably would.
Anyways.
Yeah.
And so this is actually I felt like that felt like such a climactic movie. Honestly, at this point in the movie, I was like, oh, I guess it's going to end now, and there's going to be a sequel about like going back to the future. Haha. But then I realized there was still a good amount of the movie that was left. I'm like, where in the world can they go from here? And the movie kind of slowed down for a bit as like
they did the thing that you almost assumed they weren't gonna do, because you figured like if they were allowed to do it with the rules of time travel that we're operating under, wouldn't that be the first thing that someone tried to do? But instead it's just that, yeah, I guess no one thought, hey, what if we tried to like stop it before it happened? Because there's some lines about like, oh, well, was there a ship that landed? Like, no, it's just one day they were here. No satellite imagery, never detected a ship landing, no asteroid. They just showed up in northern Russia one day. And it's like, Okay. So maybe they've been here for a while, huh?
Yeah, like it doesn't take a genius to, like, someone out of the
Out of the
like
millions
7 billion
of people in the military and the government, someone...
the billions of people. If a kid in a high school science class could think of this, then
yeah, someone would have figured out, or at least had the idea of like, hey, what if we just like went around and like took a look at the place where these things might have been, like where they originally showed up. Like, what if we just did that? Like, just to get a lay of the land, like just to like be prepared for when they do show up eventually. Like, maybe we should just go familiarize ourselves with the area. Hey, what's this weird depression in the ice that's like it like messes with all of our electronics? That's kind of strange. Like, that's something that we should be aware. It's just so... And then, like, what's funny is they're like... I guess they say that it's like... They're like, oh, well, it's, you know, thousands of feet down that layer of volcanic ash or whatever, or something. But then they're able to just, like, find... I think they blow up a bunch of explosives, and then they, find a cave system, and then they find a ship in the cave. So it's very lucky, all of these things that have just happened. And then they're like, we could take pictures of this and like go back to the world and show them indisputable proof that there's an alien ship already here. And like the white spikes are already here, like right now.
Okay.
And then they're like, nah, they'll waste time arguing about it. And it's like, really? Like,
well, honestly, what I would fear genuinely, well, I mean, like, what would actually be a possibility is that before they nuke it, like, the Russians might want to go in there and take one, like, to operate and like operate on and like try to make some like warfare.
Perhaps.
And, like, other nations are like, we can't let that happen.
What you probably would do, they say, okay, if you really want to be heroes but you want to be smart about it, is you'd probably be like, okay, here's what's going to happen. Like, we're going to go in, but one person or somebody is going to go back to the plane right away and, like, you know, be ready just to leave. So that way, if all of us die trying to do this, at least, like, somebody will know and be able to tell everyone, like, hey, the aliens are already here. We need to do something about it now. Yeah, just like carpet nuke this area of Siberia, and you'll kill them all before, you know, they even start. Also, what I think is really funny is the whole idea of like we need to develop this bioweapon to kill them all in the past is actually totally unnecessary, because they actually only use the bioweapon to kill like 10 of them, and then the rest of them they just like blow up.
Yeah. You just needed to blow.
You just needed like to bring some more C4.
But of course, that's because they were assuming in the future that the past would not figure out where they came from. So that
that's totally
in that
true.
Year they would just appear.
But
everywhere,
also, it's really funny that the bioweapon is apparently you don't realize this until this exact scene that they are injecting it. They're not like throwing a gas grenade. They're like literally injecting it directly into the hibernating aliens, and it's like, oh my gosh,
that's a weird, like, the whole idea of them going to the ship was like, okay, what's your plan here? But even before that, like when Chris Pratt gets sent back to the past and the movie slows down, which I appreciated that time. I feel like it didn't feel awkward. Things kind of...
It was like the best part of the movie just because it wasn't as much of a mess as everything else.
The actor that played his wife too was really good because she like there was like this slow-mo video of her like running up to Chris Pratt when he comes back, like, you know, in the airport, whatever, and she's like so happy to see him, and then her face slowly changes when she sees that he's like totally shaken because he just saw his future daughter die and also the rest of humanity, and like her facial expression just changes from like, you know, crying in happiness to like, oh my gosh, something is wrong. And I just noticed that moment. It was in slow-mo, so like if it was fake it would be totally obvious. But it was just well played. That was good. So then when Chris Pratt gets back from the future,
future, yeah,
and he's sitting there, and they have that one black chick
who's also from the future.
Who's also in the future. She's like in charge of the operation in the past of getting people to the future. She's there. She's the one that walked down the stadium and was like, "Join us."
Yeah, and what's funny is apparently in this timeline, paradoxes don't work the same way.
Well, presumably she was not born yet.
It's really weird though, because it's like if they kill all the aliens in the past, then there'd be no reason. You know what I mean? It's that whole that's always the problem. If they kill them all in the past, then no one would come in the future to be like, "Hey, you need to kill all these aliens in the past." You know what I'm saying? Like it's like a loop that would never happen. Yeah. But then if it never happens, then the aliens would attack. It's like a whole constantly recycling thing. And so also because you can apparently evacuate these people. Like, why don't you could just evacuate all the people maybe from the future to the past.
That's another idea I had. Like, just take all the surviving people, bring them to the past, figure out the toxin, go back to the future, and then just annihilate. So, of course, you'd have to maintain in the future the time machine where they would appear. Someone would have to maintain that part.
Or just don't go back to the future. Just abandon it. Just abandon it.
Maybe.
Like, everyone goes to the past. They all just wait 30 years for the aliens to show up. And then when they show up,
you would have situations.
You nerve gas them, and then you're done.
You'd have situations where, like, the parents would see there'd be two.
No, for sure,
kids.
But it already doesn't make any sense. Like, the time travel doesn't make any sense. So why not just go all the way with it? Like,
I guess commit.
I mean, they tell Chris Pratt he's gonna die, and what day he's gonna die, and what time he's gonna die in the past. But then I love it when they're doing the recruiting, because you have to have died before the aliens attack in order to be sent to the future to prevent a paradox or something, even though, like, Chris Pratt isn't supposed to have died for another 8 years. So, like, what if he had died? That's 8 years of his life that now he's not interacting with the same people. He's not, like, causing the same things. It would all have, like, a butterfly effect anyway. Like,
you would technically need to call people the moment they die.
Yeah, and that could have been another interesting way they could have done it. Is they could have been, like, literally, like, a minute before someone's supposed to die, all of a sudden, like, the government suits show up and they're like, "Congratulations, you're going to the future." And it's like, "Oh, but, like, I'll probably die in the future." Like, "Yeah, well, you would have died here anyway, like, literally 2 minutes from now, so, like, you're not actually losing anything even if you do die." Like, they could have done something like that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, anyway, they don't do that, and they're recruiting Chris Pratt, and they're like, "Looks like he dies." Like, and they say, like, they're like, "At 11:23 a.m., October 13th, 2030, like, you will be pronounced dead." And he's like, "Can I ask how?" And he's like, "I'm not allowed to tell you." It's like, well, you just told them the exact minute that he dies. But it's like, "Well, we can't say how. Not allowed to say how."
So much of that opening scene was just wrong. Like,
yeah.
"Hey, you've been drafted, like, so come for, like, an interview." And they're like, "Sweet. Take your shirt off and sit down, and, like, now you're basically our prisoner." And there's, like, no consultation. It was just straight, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it was so weird, but yeah. Anyway, they go to the past. They kill all the aliens. Most of them they kill with a big C4 charge.
Wait. Before we get there, I wanted to say, so when Chris Pratt gets back to the past, and he has the vial that can literally kill the aliens, like, it's supposed to be the solution.
Yes, because
he has it in his hand.
Yes.
And they're like, we couldn't get it from your hand because you were clutching it as you were, like, in a coma for, like, a day or something. And he's like, so this is the solution. And then it's like, okay, I'm just gonna go back to my family, and I still have the vial. And
I guess they just let him take it.
Like, how is it not, like, the biggest international effort to get this thing mass produced and it to be, like,
because
news?
Everyone in this movie is an idiot except for Chris Pratt and Chris Pratt's wife and Chris Pratt's daughter. They're the only people with an IQ above, like, 30 in the whole movie. Like, is those three people, and also his dad. I guess his dad apparently is, like, fine as well. He can, like, he can tamper with the time device somehow. But, like, it's just. Yeah, it's just everyone in the movie's dumb except for Chris Pratt, and Chris Pratt's even kind of dumb for not thinking of the thing sooner, because it's the most obvious thing, and no one thinks of it until like the end of the movie.
The volcano ash, or
no, the like, what if we stop this before it even happens? It's like that's the most obvious idea. Like,
it was cool how they pieced it together. Like, they knew it was northern Russia, and they knew that on the claw they had a claw
from an alien.
A claw from an alien,
and they're like,
and it had ash on it from a Chinese volcano.
But they're like, they're from northern Russia. How could it have ash from a Chinese volcano in northern Russia? And it's like,
see, I thought it was gonna be like something really cool, like, you know, like the aliens are living underneath the crust of the planet in like lava rivers.
Yeah, maybe they're not even aliens. Maybe they're just like a subterranean species that hasn't emerged until now.
But it was also pretty cool being like, oh, so this volcano exploded, put ash everywhere in this year.
Like 1,000 years ago, this volcano exploded, put ash everywhere. The ash is in this sediment layer, so we know approximately how deep the alien would have to be to pick up this specific ash. And then they find out that, like, also about that year, an alien spaceship crashed into Earth, and therefore it's buried in about that sediment layer. And the aliens have been hibernating in this spaceship under the ice for that long, presumably.
It looks like
waiting
it was kind of cool because
for the
you were
ice
expecting
to thaw to emerge or something.
Yeah, you were waiting for like, oh, the aliens, like, they're just animals basically.
Yes.
And like, how could those animals have a spaceship? You know what I mean?
And I think it's like maybe briefly, maybe it's in there, like they could do a sequel if they wanted to with the other aliens, because basically you see there's like a couple of dead pilot aliens, and they're like, those definitely aren't white spikes, but like, you know, they're like long dead. So this was basically like a big cargo truck, like a giant space cargo truck that was just like flying with all these aliens. Maybe they were just cargo. Maybe they were specifically meant to be weapons. Like maybe this is like a big space bomber that just like bombs a planet with these aliens, and then they just like overrun the planet, I guess. Like maybe that's the idea. And they're like, maybe Earth wasn't even its target. So like there's a couple little lines in there where it's like, okay, maybe they're trying to set up for a sequel. Maybe there's some big intergalactic war going on that for 1,000 years, even though the ship crashed here, like no one noticed. But maybe now they will notice because...
Well, no, there's a lot of space out in space.
Yes, perhaps. Yes.
A lot of places to get lost.
A lot of places to drop your alien eggs.
Yeah, oops.
But so there's like thousands of the aliens. White spikes are hibernating in the ship. They've survived.
They're in like pods.
Yeah, they're in like stasis pod looking things. I guess they've survived. Like it's kept them alive all this time somehow. So, but like
Chris Pratt and his dudes, they go out like to like, okay, let's find this place in northern Russia, and like, sweet, like let's go like get some kind of connection, do some kind of scan underneath, because it's like underneath all this ice. Like, no, let's just go drive out there with our snowmobiles and eyeballs and try to spot maybe where this thing might be. Like, okay,
yeah.
And so you have the how are you planning on releasing the toxin? Are you going to release it in a gaseous form?
Like the smart way to do it, yes.
The smart, so there's literally like 4 or 5 of them. They're going to just go out there with their eyeballs and try to spot where a spaceship might be underneath miles of ice. It's like, okay. And then they realize, of course, so they're out there in the middle of Russia, and you know, all the devices start freaking out, like all the electronics and compasses, like something must be underneath us. So then there's this weird cutscene where I guess they laid explosives everywhere, like a lot of explosives and freaking powerful explosives.
Yes, and they blow up the whole like ice shelf to get
like miles of ice shelf. They just explode, and like they don't show you the scene of them planting the bombs. So it's just like,
it would have taken a pretty long time to plant all these bombs.
This looks
suspicious. 8 people, by the way.
Yeah,
like
this looks suspicious. And then like scene cut, boom, and like, whoa, where did that was pretty cool explosives, but like where did that come from? Oh, I guess they planted it. Okay, well, I guess you did.
I guess they did that in 10 minutes off screen. That's cool.
Caught me off guard there. So then they go down.
Look, they have snowmobiles. They can move pretty fast.
They do. Yeah, they do. And they find like they go down into the thing that exploded, and they find like ice tunnels, and it leads them, and they see like it looks like a very small Enterprise, like from Star Trek, like the kind of
like the way the engine cells kind of are.
Yeah.
But then they get inside of it, and it's gigantic. It kind of looks like
it
kind of almost looks like you're seeing the whole back of the ship when they first find it, and it doesn't look super big. And then they get inside, and it is the biggest ship.
Yes. Imagine it looks like where the clones are being cloned in Star Wars.
In Camino, yeah, it looks like the Camino cloning facilities. Yes.
Yeah.
Just with tons of pods of these aliens.
And so they walk in. And I guess the engines are right next to the cockpit in this alien ship.
The cockpit's at the back of the ship. Or maybe it just looks like the engines. Maybe that was the front. And it looks like engines on the front for some reason. But it's actually not, I guess.
And they see the aliens. The ship is upside down.
The ship is upside down. Yep, the aliens are hanging.
And wow. These are other aliens that were obviously piloting the ship. It looks like it crashed here.
Yeah.
And then they find another chamber with 8 of the aliens.
With just a few pods. White spikes in this one room.
Yeah.
And they start injecting them with the toxin, and it kills some of them, but it wakes up the other ones, and they kill those except for the female.
Was that your plan? Just to stab? Were you planning on them being in biological pods that you could stab you could stab through,
or when you saw they were in the pods, why don't you just set some C4 in the middle of the room and be like, great, we don't even need the toxin, we can just use all this C4 that we brought with us to blow them up while they're still sleeping. This is a great idea. But instead they decide to stab some of them, and then they die, but they scream and wake up the other ones, and then the female escapes, they kill all the other ones.
I guess the explosion of exploding the ice didn't wake them up.
Yeah, the explosion of blowing up the whole ice shelf on top of the ship didn't wake anyone up. It was when they screamed when they injected them with the toxin.
Liquid pain.
Yeah. That's what
it literally disintegrates them.
It literally melts them. Yeah. Oh my God.
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
And so honestly, it's okay, so there's 8 of them with one female, so maybe theoretically in the year 2048, whatever,
or maybe the year before they emerge, but they don't attack yet, and they just start breeding, and then
they have a ridiculous amount of babies.
They have a ridiculous population growth rate or whatever
from one female, but obviously that's not the case because they had a whole colony in. But it looks like
at first it's just the one room. But then they walk 20 more feet down the hallway after a couple of them escape, and you see the giant Camino cloning facility that has just thousands upon thousands of aliens in it, and they're all also starting to wake up. So whatever this ship is doing, the ship that has been derelict here for 1,000 years, apparently either the aliens are capable of just hibernating for 1,000 years on their own, or the ship somehow had, after crashing catastrophically, and the pilots clearly died because they're just still in their pilot seats, but they don't actually look that physically traumatized. They're just because the bodies are still intact, they're just desiccated, from rotting from so long, but they're still strapped into the pilot seats. Somehow, I guess this alien spaceship, either A, the aliens kept themselves alive that long, just for 1,000 years, sleeping, or the alien ship somehow had the power and was able to, have the emergency power left over, despite catastrophically crashing, to, administer whatever, drugs and nutrition supplements and whatever else you would need to do to keep someone in stasis for 1,000 years.
I don't know. It's alien technology. It's a movie can use magic or alien technology.
Fine, fine.
Maybe they're magic too. I don't know.
They're magic space aliens.
But now we get to the best part of the movie. So they realize they have to explode the whole ship, and 2 individuals make sacrificial moves.
A couple people, a couple of characters, make a sacrifice. They blow themselves up. They apparently have enough C4 with them because they have so much C4 with them, and they blow up the whole ship, with the C4, and kill all the aliens. But the lady alien, the queen, escapes, and she runs out, and Chris Pratt's we gotta get her, Dad. So it's Chris Pratt,
because if you don't, she might reproduce all on her own.
Yeah, maybe she's already.
all the other aliens are dead.
Apparently these things have such a ridiculous reproduction rate that just one of them by themselves, which maybe we assume she's already, fertilized and that she's been that way for 1,000 years.
There you go.
Like, apparently one of these things on her own is still like a global threat. Like, they reproduce that quickly, apparently. So
but they go after this one alien. Father and son go after this one.
Yeah, this one alien.
The one female alien.
And they have
that typical Hollywood move where it's father and son, estranged father and son,
and they're
having to force them together to this last combat.
Yes, and they have this fight that takes forever, which I guess it's like cool Hollywood stuff, but it's like, how tough is this alien? Because like
it was a pretty cool fight scene.
It gets shot like 50 or 60 times, and then
at close range. With a sniper rifle.
With an AR-10 and an AR-15. So 5.56 and 7.62 by 51 rounds. Multiple of them hitting this thing in like the head and like the side of the neck, which like the neck is where we're told the thing was vulnerable. Like we see in a different scene, Chris Pratt literally blows one of their heads off with a few shots from his rifle. But in that
was a male though.
Yeah, so the males are just wimps. The
girls, by comparison,
girl power gets it done. So anyway,
they have the thick skulls. The females do,
I guess so. But yeah, so they're fighting her, and he manages to like inject her arm with the toxin, and then it's smart enough to like bite her own arm off, so that way the toxin.
This was cool though.
Her.
I appreciated this part of the movie because it was like everything so far has been like guns and shooting, and I got to a point where it's like it got so close quarters that like, okay, now this is real combat, is when you can't use guns and you have to use stabby things and sharp blades in your fists. It was just ridiculous because it's this like monstrous alien they're fighting, and like,
that we established earlier in the movie that one of these aliens is strong enough to like just flip a Humvee effortlessly, and now Chris Pratt and his dad are gonna fight this thing in like melee combat. So that's
like it's just so like. It's so like, I don't know, Hollywood is so like what you want to say, like, yes, punch that alien.
Yeah.
And so he walks up and this like sacrificial move, he stabs the alien with the thing that's with the toxin, and it starts like rapidly dissolving its arm, and and the music changes, like, oh wow, this is it. Then it literally freaking bites it's like a jackal, it bites his arm off so the toxin stops spreading, and you're like, shoot. Like, how in the world is this going to end? And then you kind of get the idea what's going to happen. Chris Pratt, he's on the edge of a snowy cliff in Russia, and he's trying to lure the monster towards him so he can take it off the cliff, and they'll both die. And then his dad has the same idea, and he's like, I'm sorry, son, for everything that I've done. And the alien's running after him because he cuts his hand, and the alien can smell blood because obviously...
They've shot its eyes out at this point, so it can't, can't see anymore.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, before that, there's... it's coming at them, and they have to use like a hatchet they have, and I can't remember if this is the point where Chris Pratt pulls out his little alien claw to use it as a dagger.
So literally the alien gets shot like 50 or 60 times. They shoot its eyes out, they inject it with the toxin, it cuts its own arm off. Chris Pratt uses the alien claw as a dagger, jumps on its back. So cool. It is a cool moment. Uses the claw as a dagger, jumps on its back, and cuts its throat. And this
with its own claw,
and it's still alive.
Dude, I don't even care. I'm not even trying to be realistic anymore. Like, I want to see this guy wrestle an alien with its own claws. Like, please let me just see this. And that's what you get. And he slits its throat. It's not dead yet.
Yeah.
And it's just like this. These females are meant to like live through anything, I guess. And so then he has to go in for one more stabby stab with the next toxin thing he has, and he stabs it, and that as it falls off a cliff, so it's falling off a cliff, hitting in rocks as it's dissolving, and it smashes to bits on the last rock, and it was just such a perfect like Hollywood
splats.
I keep saying that, but like it just splat. It was exactly what you want to see in an alien death. It's like,
and then the comic relief character was also there, like at the very end.
It ends like Kung Fu Panda 1 ends, where it's like they're all exhausted laying on their backs, and it's like humorous, and the camera's just going up in the sky.
Yeah.
Like, haha, wasn't that great?
And it's like,
then of course
we did it.
At the end of the,
we saved the future by fixing the problem in the past, just like we always should have done.
What was the solution? Freaking punching the aliens. That's what they should have done.
Yes, you just got to go Pacific Rim on them. You got to build a giant punching robot.
The sword.
And a sword, and you just got to punch them.
Yes.
I mean, it's fix the problem in the past. It's like, it's the most obvious thing, and you think maybe the rules of the movie would prevent you from doing that, but then in the end you realize, nope, that's what we were supposed to do all along. I had this whole idea to talk about a comparison to a Star Trek The Next Generation episode, where there's some time shenanigans and fixing a problem with a big war in the past. But honestly, I don't even know if I need to compare it at this point, because I feel like we've sort of talked the movie to death.
Yes.
But
I feel like next week I kind of like, it would be cool to do Edge of Tomorrow just to compare it, just redeem in our minds the idea of a sci-fi
maybe
war.
next week, because maybe next week we'll do Loki, and then maybe we'll do Edge of Tomorrow after that.
Well, we could also do Black Widow, because Black Widow just came out.
That's true.
That should also be a review.
But we should do. I would be down with doing Edge of Tomorrow again. We did it 4 years ago. It would be interesting to see.
Oh, we did. Yeah.
But it would be. Yeah. I'd be fine doing it again. It's a good enough movie, and I feel like there's more about that movie that I appreciate now than when we did it 4 years ago. So honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to doing it again. But yeah, we've got Black Widow, we've got Loki, we've got other stuff to do. But Edge of Tomorrow, I wouldn't be opposed to doing it again. But
just the fact that these two movies are so similar, the Tomorrow War and Edge of Tomorrow, they both have tomorrow in the name.
Yeah.
And that they can be so similar in concept and design, and that one can be so obviously better than the other.
So much better executed. But
and there's lots of like typical tropes and like generic things that you might expect in those kinds of movies, but Edge of Tomorrow is far better than this movie was.
Yes, for sure. But all right, well, I think that about covers it. We've gone on for like an hour and a half, so I feel like we should probably wrap up. But that was pretty much our just thoughts on the Tomorrow War. It's a movie that does not follow its own rules, that has lots of things in it that are incoherent and don't line up. There's a fun Hollywood thing at the end.
Yes. Get to see
if
Chris
you
Pratt
think that
punch an alien.
If you think that would redeem the whole movie for you, then go ahead and watch it. But otherwise, just watch something else. That's my take. So There you go.
Well put. Well said.
But all right, thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next time.